April 15th, 1945, British tanks roll into Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in northern Germany. What they find stops them cold. 13,000 corpses, scattered across the ground like trash, rotting in piles, flies everywhere. The smell hits the soldiers before they even see the bodies. 60,000 survivors, walking skeletons, hollow eyes, too weak to stand. Among the Nazi guards captured that day was a 22-year-old woman whose beauty hid a monster's soul. Her name was Irma Grese, born October 7, 1923, in a tiny farming village called Recken in northeastern Germany. Fifth child in a poor family. Her father Alfred worked at a dairy farm. Her mother Bertha did the same. Hard work, little money, nothing unusual. But the family had cracks. Alfred Grese hated the Nazis. He was a strict Christian. He believed in order and discipline. He also believed in the belt. He beat his children when they disobeyed. He beat them when they spoke back. He beat them for being lazy. In 1936, when Irma was 12, her mother discovered Alfred was having an affair with the daughter of a local pub owner. Berta Grese killed herself. Irma found her. After that, Alfred raised 5 children alone. The beatings got worse. The house went silent. Irma stopped talking much. She stopped smiling. At school, other kids bullied her. Teachers ignored her. She was small, quiet, forgettable. She dropped out at 14. The Nazi Party had taken over Germany by then. Adolf Hitler's face hung in every classroom. Children were taught that Germans were superior, that Jews, Poles, Roma, and others were subhuman, that obedience to the state was sacred, that violence could be holy if it served the Führer. Alfred forbade his children from joining the Hitler Youth. But he couldn't control what the schools taught. The poison dripped in anyway. Irma got a job on a farm for 6 months. Then she worked in a shop for another 6. In 1939, at 16, she was hired as an assistant nurse at a place called Hohenleichen Sanatorium. It sounded innocent. It wasn't. Hohenleichen was a Nazi medical center. The head doctor was a man named Karl Gebhardt, an SS physician, close to Heinrich Himmler, the architect of the Holocaust. Irma saw things there. Experiments, patients screaming, limbs broken on purpose, infections introduced into wounds to test drugs, blood on white tile floors. She didn't report it. She didn't look away either. Something in her changed. Reports say she failed her nursing exams and was transferred to a dairy farm in Fürstenberg. She operated a butter machine. Boring work. Safe work. She didn't want safe. In 1942, at 19 years old, Irma Grese volunteered to become an SS guard. She was sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp, a camp built only for women, located near Fürstenberg, not far from where she had worked at the dairy. Ravensbrück was hell behind barbed wire. Over 130,000 women were imprisoned there during the war. 92,000 died, starved, beaten, worked to death, experimented on. It was also a training center. 3,500 female guards learned their trade there. They called it a school. But it wasn't about teaching. It was about breaking. Irma's instructor was a woman named Dorothea Binz. Tall, cold, efficient. Binz had one rule: extract maximum work from the prisoners until they die. Don't waste bullets, don't waste time, use your voice, use your fists, use fear. Irma learned fast. She learned how to shout orders until women collapsed. She learned how to stand over a prisoner and watch them bleed without flinching. She learned how to smile while others screamed. She also witnessed medical atrocities. Dr. Karl Gebhardt, her old boss from Hohenleichen, worked at Ravensbrück too, along with assistants Herta Oberhäuser and Fritz Fischer. They ran experiments on living prisoners. They broke women's legs with hammers, infected wounds with bacteria, performed amputations without anesthesia, sterilized women and children, forced abortions on prisoners 8 months pregnant. About 80 women, mostly Polish, were subjected to these experiments. Many died, the rest were left mutilated. Irma assisted. She observed. She said nothing. One day in 1943, she went home to visit her father. She bragged about her work, about the camp, about the power she had. Alfred Grese grabbed his belt and beat her bloody. Then he threw her out of the house. She never went back. That was the last thread connecting her to anything human. March 1943. Irma Grese was transferred to Auschwitz-Birkenau in occupied Poland, the largest death camp in Nazi history. Over 1 million people were murdered there. Most of them Jews, gassed, burned, ashes scattered into the sky like snow. Irma was assigned to the women's section. She was 20 years old. At Ravensbrück, she'd been a student. At Auschwitz, she became something else. She found power for the first time in her life, absolute power. Over thousands of starving women. She carried a woven leather whip, coated with cellophane so blood wiped off easily. She carried a loaded pistol. She kept 2 massive attack dogs. She starved them on purpose. The prisoners gave her nicknames. The beautiful beast, the hyena of Auschwitz. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, a face that looked innocent, almost angelic. It made the cruelty worse, because you didn't expect it. Dr. Gisela Perl, a Jewish prisoner and physician, survived Auschwitz. Years later, she said this: Irma Grese had the face of an angel and the soul of the most depraved sadist. Another survivor, Olga Lengyel, wrote a memoir called 5 Chimneys. She described Irma walking through the camp with a whip in one hand, pistol in the other, dogs pulling at the leash. Roll call started at 3 in the morning. It lasted until 9. Women stood in rows, silent, freezing. If you moved, you got beaten. If you collapsed, you got kicked. If you didn't get up, you were dragged away. Irma walked the rows, slowly, looking for mistakes. A crooked line, a woman swaying on her feet, a glance in the wrong direction. Then the whip came down. Reports say she didn't just punish rule breakers, she punished women she found too pretty, too proud, too alive. If she saw a woman with nice hair or clear skin or straight posture, she marked her for selection. Selection meant the gas chamber. Witnesses claimed Irma had affairs with prisoners, male and female, used them, abused them, then sent them to die. Other reports say she had relationships with SS officers. Josef Mengele, the infamous camp doctor, Josef Kramer, the commandant, Franz Wolfgang Hatzinger, an SS engineer. Power and sex twisted together. Jealousy fueled murder. One prisoner, a 14-year-old Jewish girl named Alice Tenenbaum, was saved 16 times by Irma. Why? Survivors said Alice looked like Irma's younger sister, Helene. A flicker of something human, maybe. But it didn't stop the killings. Another girl, Nina Kaleska, 16 years old, was used as a lookout during Irma's secret meetings. She survived to testify later. Irma's dogs were her favorite weapon. She starved them for days. Then she unleashed them on prisoners. Reports say she smiled while the dogs tore into flesh. Her eyes went bloodshot. She looked drunk on it. She ordered women to hold stones above their heads until they collapsed. She kicked them with her boots. She forced them to do exercises until their legs gave out. 30,000 Hungarian Jews arrived at Auschwitz in the spring of 1944. They were crammed into barracks built for 300. No toilets, no water, human waste everywhere. The smell made prisoners vomit. Irma walked through it all like she was inspecting cattle. She wore fine clothes, stolen from murdered prisoners, tailored by Jewish seamstresses in the camp. Her favorite outfit was a sky blue jacket with a dark blue tie. She looked like a young officer, polished, clean. She told other guards she dreamed of becoming a film star after the war. If you look away now, that's what they wanted. Silence. Don't let her win. Hit subscribe so their screams are never forgotten. January 18th, 1945. Soviet forces closed in on Auschwitz from the east. The Nazis evacuated the camp. Tens of thousands of prisoners were forced to march west in the middle of winter. No food, no coats, temperatures below freezing. It was called a death march. Anyone who fell was shot. Anyone who slowed down was shot. Bodies lined the roads. Irma marched with them. She didn't stop beating prisoners, not even in the snow. She was transferred first to Ravensbrück, then, in March 1945, to Bergen-Belsen. Belsen was collapsing. No food arrived, no medicine. The camp was overcrowded with prisoners evacuated from camps in the east. 200 to 300 people died every day. The bodies piled up faster than they could be buried. Prisoners got one bowl of turnip soup and a slice of bread per day. There were 200 blankets for tens of thousands of people. Typhus spread, tuberculosis, starvation turned prisoners into walking corpses. Irma Grese spent 3 weeks at Bergen-Belsen. In that time, she earned another nickname, the Beast of Belsen. She kept beating women. She forced them to do exercises until they collapsed. She hit them with a rubber truncheon. She made them kneel for hours, holding stones. 2 sisters stole potato peels from the kitchen. Irma smashed their heads together until blood poured down their faces. Days before liberation, she was still cracking her riding crop across prisoners' backs. The Nazis were losing the war. Everyone knew it. The camps were falling apart. The guards were burning documents and fleeing. Irma Grese kept torturing. April 15th, 1945. British soldiers from the 11th Armoured Division entered Bergen-Belsen. They found hell on earth. 13,000 unburied corpses. Some had been dead for weeks. Rats crawled over them. Flies covered everything. The smell made soldiers vomit into their helmets. 60,000 survivors. Skeletal, diseased, dying. The British forced the captured SS guards to bury the bodies, men and women. Guards who tortured prisoners now dug mass graves with their bare hands. Irma Grese was captured 2 days later, April 17th, 1945. A journalist asked her why she did it. Why the torture? Why the killings? She looked at him calmly and said, "It was our duty to exterminate antisocial elements so that Germany's future would be assured. No regret, no shame." The Belsen trial began on September 17th, 1945. A British military tribunal. 45 defendants, SS guards, Karpos, camp officers. Irma Grese stood among them. Survivors testified, one after another. They described the whip, the dogs, the beatings, the selections. Irma smiled in court. When asked about killings, she denied everything. She admitted to beatings, but called them discipline. She said the witnesses were exaggerating, making an elephant out of a fly. The tribunal didn't believe her. She was found guilty of crimes against humanity, guilty of murder, guilty of torture. On November 17th, 1945, she was sentenced to death by hanging. December 13th, 1945. Hamelin Prison, Germany. Albert Pierre Point, Britain's chief executioner, prepared the gallows. Irma Grese was brought into the room. She was calm. Her hair was brushed, her face clean. She looked at the noose, then at Pierre Point. Her last word was a single word in German. Schnell! Quickly. The rope snapped tight. Silence. Irma Grese was 22 years old. The youngest woman executed under British law in the 20th century. She thought her story would fade with her last breath. Don't let that happen. Subscribe. Make sure her victims' names live longer than her shadow. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it has blonde hair and blue eyes. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it dreams of being a film star. Irma Grese was not born a killer. She was made into one. By trauma, by ideology, by a system that told her cruelty was duty, that murder was service. But thousands of people lived through the same war, the same propaganda, the same fear. They didn't become monsters. She chose. Every time she raised her whip, every time she sent a woman to the gas chamber, every time she smiled at suffering, she chose. The faces of her victims are mostly forgotten now, their names lost, but hers remains, not as a warning of what evil looks like, but as a warning of how easily it hides. How many other faces like hers walk unnoticed?